For as long as I could remember, I had been the backbone of my family, the one who worked, the one who sacrificed, the one who held everything together while they drained me dry. My name is Daniel, and at 32, I had spent more than half my life carrying the weight of a family that barely acknowledged my existence beyond what I could provide. When my father died unexpectedly, I was only 14. That day, everything changed. My mother, Evelyn, was devastated, collapsing under the grief, while my younger brother, Tyler, was too young to understand the finality of it all. And me? I had no choice but to grow up overnight. While other kids worried about school dances and college applications, I was calculating grocery costs, balancing bills, and figuring out how to keep our home from falling apart. By the time I turned 18, I had already given up on my own dreams. College? Not an option. I jumped straight into the workforce, grinding through minimum wage jobs to help pay rent while my mother took care of my aging grandfather. His health had been declining for years, and as much as I admired my mother's dedication to him, it meant that the weight of financial responsibility landed squarely on my shoulders. There were nights when I worked until dawn, my hands raw from long shifts at construction sites, only to come home and find my mother doting on Tyler, making sure he had everything he wanted, while I was barely acknowledged. Tyler, now 20, had no job, no responsibilities, and no clue about the sacrifices I made. He spent his days lazing around, glued to his phone, living in some fantasy world where he would one day be famous. My mother enabled him completely, letting him coast through life without ever pushing him to contribute. "He's just a kid," she'd say whenever I brought it up. A kid? At 20? While I had been breaking my back for this family since I was a teenager? It made me sick. I should have seen it then, the clear, undeniable truth. I was nothing but a provider to them. My efforts weren't appreciated. My sacrifices weren't recognized. My role in this family wasn't as a son or a brother. I was an ATM, a safety net, a crutch for them to lean on whenever they needed something. But love, respect, consideration? That was reserved for Tyler. And yet, I stayed. I convinced myself that this was what family was: duty, responsibility, and unconditional loyalty. I had no idea how wrong I was. I should have seen the signs earlier. The favoritism, the entitlement, the way my sacrifices were expected rather than appreciated. But I kept telling myself that things would change. That one day, my mother would look at me with the same warmth she gave Tyler. That she would recognize what I had done for our family. That hope shattered the night I got the call. It was past midnight, and I had just finished a grueling double shift at the factory. My body aching, my hands sore from handling heavy machinery all day. I was exhausted, mentally and physically drained, and all I wanted was a few hours of sleep before doing it all over again the next day. Then my phone rang. Tyler's name flashed across the screen. My stomach sank. "Daniel, please, I need you," he slurred, panic lacing his voice. In the background, I could hear shouting, the unmistakable sound of police sirens wailing in the distance. I didn't even have to ask. I already knew. Tyler had gotten himself into trouble. Again. I raced to the location he sent me. A dingy downtown nightclub known for its rowdy crowds and illegal activities. As soon as I arrived, I saw him, disheveled, drunk, and sitting on the curb with a fresh bruise on his jaw. Standing next to him were two police officers and a furious-looking businessman in an expensive suit. "Are you his brother?" one officer asked. I nodded, already dreading what was coming. The officer sighed. "Your brother started an altercation inside the club. It escalated. He hit this man." He gestured to the businessman, who scoffed, adjusting his tie with barely concealed rage. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. "Sir, I just pay the damn damages. And I won't press charges," the man snapped. I turned to Tyler, who refused to meet my gaze. Still reeking of alcohol. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't even worried. He knew, deep down, that I would fix this for him. And that was the moment something inside me broke. I paid the man, gritting my teeth as I transferred the money, watching another piece of my hard-earned savings disappear because of my brother's recklessness. The police let Tyler go with a warning, and as we walked to my car, I finally let my fury spill out. "This is the last time. Tyler, I said, my voice shaking. You're on your own from now on. But even as I said it, I knew I didn't mean it. Because Tyler and my mother? They would never let me go. I should have known something was wrong. The signs were there, subtle at first, but undeniable once I looked back. The hushed conversations between my mother and Tyler. The way they avoided eye contact when I asked about finances. The missing documents from my office drawer. But I had been too caught up in work. Too exhausted from carrying the weight of our family on my back. To notice the cracks forming beneath me. Until it all came crashing down. That evening, I arrived home later than usual. The house was eerily quiet. Normally, even if my mother wasn't talking to me, I'd hear the distant hum of the television or the soft clinking of dishes in the sink. But this time, there was nothing, just an empty, hollow silence. I called out, "Mom? Tyler?" but got no response. Dread crept up my spine. As I stepped further inside, I noticed it immediately. The family portraits that once hung on the walls were gone. The antique cabinet, the one that belonged to my grandmother, stood empty. The drawers in the living room were left open. Stripped bare, the house felt abandoned. My heart pounded as I rushed to my room. Yanking open my closet, half of my clothes were still there. But something far more important was missing. My safe. The safe that held every cent I had worked for over the years, my savings. My emergency fund, my plans for the future. Gone. My stomach lurched as I grabbed my phone. My hands shaking as I dialed my mother's number. It went straight to voicemail. Then, a notification popped up, an email from her. I opened it, my breath catching in my throat as I read the words that shattered what little hope I had left. Daniel, Tyler and I have decided to move to Florida. You've always been so independent. And we figured you'd be fine on your own. We took the money, it's ours too. After all, and most of the valuables. You'll understand one day. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your life. My fingers tightened around my phone as anger, betrayal, and disbelief surged through me all at once. I had given everything, my time, my energy, my future, to this family. And in return, they had stolen from me. I had been nothing more than a wallet to them. I let out a slow, shaking breath, standing in the middle of an empty house that once felt like home. They were gone, and for the first time in my life, I was truly alone. The moment I finished reading my mother's email, a slow, suffocating rage settled in my chest. My hands shook as I clutched my phone, rereading the words over and over again, hoping I had misunderstood. But no, there it was. In black and white, my own mother and brother had drained my savings, taken what little I had left, and fled to Florida like thieves in the night. But they weren't just thieves. They were my family. I sucked in a breath, my mind spinning. I needed to think, to act fast. My entire financial future was at risk. With my heart pounding, I opened my banking app, dreading what I would see. My main account had been cleared out, just as I had feared. Every penny I had worked for, gone. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. But I refused to let panic take over. Then I checked my secondary accounts. My breath caught. A sliver of hope flickered inside me. I had moved a significant portion of my savings to an untouched investment account months ago. Just in case of an emergency. They hadn't gotten to it. That money was still mine. Relief and fury warred inside me as I realized what had happened. They had underestimated me. But it wasn't just about the money. It was the betrayal, the sheer audacity of it. I wasn't about to let them get away with it. I immediately called my bank. I need to report unauthorized transactions, I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. The customer service agent asked me a series of security questions, then pulled up my account. "Sir," she said hesitantly, "it looks like there were multiple withdrawal attempts on your credit cards as well. But they were flagged as suspicious." I exhaled sharply. So they had tried to take even more. And the bank had stopped them. I wasn't going to let them take anything else. Freeze all my accounts, block my debit and credit cards, and send me new ones immediately. Within minutes, I had secured what was left of my finances. I took an extra step, changing all my passwords, updating my security settings, making sure there was no way for them to access another dime of mine. Then I sat back, staring at the empty house around me. They thought they had won. They thought they had taken everything from me. But I wasn't broken. And I sure as hell wasn't done with them yet. The next morning, just as I was about to step out of my now empty house, my phone buzzed violently on the table. I stared at the screen. Mom. I let it ring. Once. Twice. My fingers hovered over the decline button. But then, something in me snapped. I needed to hear what kind of excuse she had this time. I swiped to answer. What do you want? My voice was ice. There was silence for a moment before she finally spoke. Jesse, we need to talk. I scoffed. Oh, now you want to talk? After you stole my money and ran off to Florida like some criminals? It's not like that, she rushed out, but I could hear the hesitation in her voice. A lie forming, a weak excuse on the tip of her tongue. Lisa she wanted a fresh start. And I needed to be there for her. You know how much she's struggled. How much she's dreamed of this restaurant. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Her dream? You threw everything away for her dream? What about me, Mom? What about the years I spent working my ass off to keep this family afloat? What about my future? Her breath hitched. I could almost feel her grasping for the right words. Jesse, please, I didn't want to hurt you. I thought you'd understand. I nearly dropped the phone. Understand? The sheer audacity of that statement made my blood boil. You didn't hurt me. Mom, you betrayed me. I spat, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. You didn't even have the decency to tell me to my face. You just took everything and left me a damn email. She sniffled, her voice breaking. I'm sorry. I inhaled deeply, forcing myself to stay in control. No, you're not. You're only sorry because I caught you. Another pause. Then, she whispered, we need your help. A cold, suffocating silence stretched between us. I closed my eyes. There it was, the real reason for her call. They had run out of money. Their grand plan, their fresh start, it was falling apart. And now, the same son they had abandoned was their last hope. I exhaled slowly. You have some nerve calling me, I said, voice eerily calm. Jesse, please, we don't have enough to. I didn't let her finish. I hung up, blocked her number, and for the first time in my life, I felt free. For weeks, I ignored their messages. At first, they came sporadically, my mom's feeble attempts to explain, to justify, to ask for help without outright saying the words. Then they became relentless. Calls at all hours, emails filled with half-hearted apologies, sandwiched between passive-aggressive remarks about how families should take care of each other. I was done. I had given everything to that family, and they had thrown me away the second I was no longer convenient. Then, one night, as I was finishing up work, an unknown number flashed across my screen. Something inside me told me to ignore it, but curiosity won. I answered. At first, I only heard ragged breathing. Then, a familiar voice, trembling. Lisa. Jesse? Her voice was small, weak, not the arrogant sister I remembered. I almost hung up right then. But something made me pause. What do you want, Lisa? My voice was cold, detached. There was a sharp inhale on the other end. Then, the floodgates broke. Please, she begged. I messed up. The restaurant, it never even opened. Mom used the last of the money on rent. And now we're getting evicted. We have nothing left. I could hear the raw panic in her voice. She wasn't just acting. This was real. They were drowning. For a split second, I pictured them, my mother, clutching onto the remnants of her pride. Too stubborn to admit she had made a mistake. Lisa, once so smug, now realizing she had gambled away everything and lost. But wasn't this what they had chosen? I let the silence stretch. Let her feel the weight of her own choices. Then, finally, I spoke. You have some nerve, Lisa. Her breath hitched. Jesse, please, I know I don't deserve your help. But Mom is sick. She's not eating. She barely sleeps. She just keeps saying she ruined everything. A lie? Or the truth? It didn't matter. I clenched my jaw. That's not my problem. Jesse. No. I cut in sharply. You made your bed. Now lie in it. And then, before she could say another word, I ended the call. I blocked the number. This time, there was no hesitation, no lingering guilt. I had spent my entire life being their backup plan. But I wasn't their safety net anymore. Weeks passed, and the silence was deafening. For the first time in my life, I wasn't tethered to my family's problems. There were no frantic calls. No demands. No guilt-laced pleas for money or help. Just peace. Yet, every so often, I'd catch myself checking my phone, half expecting another desperate message from my mother or Lisa. Not out of longing, out of habit. I had spent years as their crutch. Their provider. The one who always cleaned up their messes. Walking away felt surreal. Then, one evening, as I sat in my new apartment, sipping coffee while overlooking the skyline, I made a choice. I logged onto social media. I had cut ties, blocked numbers, erased traces of them from my life. But curiosity got the best of me. Had Lisa finally figured out how to fend for herself? Had my mother accepted the consequences of her choices? It didn't take long to find out. Lisa's posts were a public diary of disaster. Life in Florida is horrible. No one wants to hire me. Mom is sick, and we're struggling. Everything fell apart. I don't know what to do. There were dozens of similar posts, each more desperate than the last. She had gone from flaunting her dream life to broadcasting her downfall for the world to see. And then, there it was. A direct message. From Lisa. Jesse, please, I know I don't deserve it. But I don't have anyone else. I just need a little help. Mom is in bad shape. I'll do anything. I'll work. I'll change, I swear. Please, don't ignore me. The old me would have wavered. Would have stared at the message with a pounding heart. Guilt twisting my insides. Would have thought, maybe this time, they mean it. Maybe this time, they'll change. But I wasn't that person anymore. I didn't even open the message. I deleted it. Blocked her. Then, I exhaled, a slow, steady breath, and let my shoulders relax. This time, I felt nothing. Not anger. Not regret. Not sadness. Just freedom. They had chosen their path. They had burned the bridge between us. And now? They could never cross it again.